Okay, everyone, let's quiet down. Thank you so much for being here. We are starting right now. We've got a live stream going on, so we want to be nice and quiet. I do also want to remind you today, if you're talking at any point into like asking a question or something, you're going to need to talk into a mic because we are live streaming and no one's going to hear you unless you're talking into the mic. All right, we are going to be bringing in another class, so just try to focus on what's going up on here and maybe not on some folks coming in and sitting down in the background. All right. So hi, everybody. Welcome. Hi. Thank you for being here with us today. Hello. Thank you for being here for this TeenLIVE author talk. Yeah. My name is Ruth Isserman, and I'm an associate manager with the Young Adult Program and Services Department at the New York Public Library. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about NYPL resources for teens and educators, and then I'm going to introduce our author and our illustrator, our guest today. TeenLIVE is a series of author programs that are just for teens, but of course educators and anybody who loves young adult literature is welcome as well. These programs are sponsored by the Andreas C. Dracopoulos Family Endowment for Young Audiences, and after our discussion today, there will be a Q&A with time for your questions. As always, please follow the library's general policies and rules while you're here today. At the New York Public Library, teens can join free programs and events, get access to millions of books and ebooks, check out tech and art materials at our expanded teen centers, and much more. We wanted to highlight how many free things are available for you all at the library. Visit nypl.org/teens to find out what's happening at your local library, including college and career resources, creative arts supplies, programs on everything from writing to tech, and you can also find places to study and check out books. You can even join our teams. We have jobs for teens as well. For the educators here today, we have so many events and resources at the library we would love to share with you all. Contact us at youngadultservices@nypl.org to learn more about future teen events and opportunities like today's author talk. In addition, we have librarians here with us today dedicated to connecting and supporting school communities with library resources. Educators, you can arrange workshops, visits, book clubs, and more for your school by contacting school support and outreach at the New York Public Library. Email schoolvisits@nypl.org for more information. And most importantly, get a library card. If you don't already have a library card, you can get one for free by visiting nypl.org/library card or by visiting any New York Public Library branch. You can use a library card to borrow more than 6 million items from our collections, including Pushing Hope, the title we're discussing today. All right, and now on to our main event. Our featured author and illustrators for today are Raymond Santana and Keith Henry Brown. Raymond Santana is an author, designer, and activist. He currently travels around the country telling his story of hope and overcoming obstacles as he continues to fight against the inequalities of the American justice system. Santana also owns the clothing company Park Madison NYC, named after his hometown of New York. He currently lives in Harlem. Pushing Hope, an illustrated memoir of survival, is his first book. Keith Henry Brown began his artistic career in comics, went on to pursue painting, and later became creative director for Jazz at Lincoln Center. He has illustrated many award-winning children's books, his most recent being Pushing Hope, an illustrated memoir of survival, and album covers for prominent jazz musicians, as well as created posters for Jazz Appreciation Month for the Museum of American History. The father of 2 sons, he lives in Brooklyn, New York. Now I'll pass it over to Renee Scott, a young adult librarian from the New York Public Library, who is going to be leading our conversation today.
Thank you so much, Ruth. How you guys doing today? Doing good? All right. So I'm going to start off with a question for you guys. So how many of you have heard or watched When They See Us on Netflix? Show of hands. All right, good number of you. So for those who don't know, it tells the story of the Central Park Five, now known as the Exonerated Five, and how they were wrongfully convicted and imprisoned for a crime that they didn't commit when they were only teenagers. So in Pushing Hope, Raymond Santana one of the exonerated 5, tells his story of overcoming incredible odds and the work he does to help others in similar situations. So, Mr. Santana, what you went through was definitely not for the faint of heart, and it was a travesty of justice. So, what inspired you to create a graphic memoir about your experiences?
Good morning. First off, let me say thank you guys for coming out this morning and sharing this space with me. This is my first book. This is me going in depth into part of my story. And so it means a lot that you're here with me today. For me, and it goes into the question, for me, the reason why I wrote the book and wanted to do the book was because of young folks such as yourself. You know, I was 14 years old when I first went to prison, right? And I was convicted of a crime that I did not commit. And so for me, as I grew in the system and I battled with the system and I tried to overcome obstacles within the system, right, and just learning in the process, the importance of writing the book was for you guys. You're very welcome. Because at the end of the day, you guys are our future. You guys become tomorrow's politicians. You become our mayor, our governors, our president of the United States. You become our business owners. And so that's the investment. The investment is about telling the story, and then hopefully it inspires somebody. It helps you to do research. It helps you to look into what's going on in your community. You know, at some point, some of you guys will be able to vote, right? And that's another task that will be put on you, that be placed on you, you know, from your community and from society. So for me, it's always about the children. It's always about the young adults. And it's about getting that message to them. So that was the inspiration for writing the book.
All right, so my question is for Mr. Brown. This is a very well-known event in history. I will tell you, I was 5 years old when this happened and had a very in-depth conversation with my family. So what challenges did you face while coming up with the design of this graphic memoir?
It was something that I was aware of. I was quite a bit older than 5 years old. I don't know what I was. I was like about you guys' age when it happened. So a little older than Ray, but I was older. And I remember being really moved by it and reading the papers and feeling like, how could this possibly happen in America at this time? And I felt a kinship with the 5 gentlemen. Does everybody know the story? I mean, whether you saw the film or not, but do you know the story about exactly what happened? Yes. Yes. You all do? Yes. Okay, good. You don't? Well, we're going to talk about it, but I just feel like, you know, these guys look like me. You know, they were brown like me. They were from New York like me. I drew pictures and fantasized, and I don't know, it just felt like this could have been the same thing. I could have been hanging out with my boys at Central Park, and it could have had the same thing happen to me, so I related immediately.
So this is kind of like a two-parter question for both of you. So following with the other questions, what feelings you were aiming to illustrate throughout this memoir, and what was the experience of crafting this project for the both of you?
I know for me, because, you know, we talked about doing the book. And so when they came to me and they said, well, how about doing a graphic novel? That sparked my interest instantly, because I'm an art kid also. Like, I came from graffiti, from drawing stick figures and Marvel characters. So I always had this fascination with art. And so for me, it made a lot of sense when they said, let's do a graphic novel. It was just about, who do we get to do the illustrations? And so we got Keith, right? And for me, that's where it kind of bridged for me, because the story is about how I suffered, with my art ability throughout my years due to prison. And so it was another turning point of me connecting that again, reliving that through Keith's art. Taking me back as a kid and into those memories, with some of the illustrations.
Yeah, I mean, I went to High School of Art and Design. which is up the street, well, it was when I was a kid, 63rd and 3rd, and with the sole purpose of drawing Spider-Man and Black Panther. And shockingly, we had a program there where I was able to come right out of high school and go work for Marvel. I worked there for 2 years. I worked on several strips. But the thing that stopped me from making a full career is that I wanted, as much as I loved those characters and wanted them, they weren't like people. You know, I mean, they were people I knew. They were fantasy. They had to stay kind of in the same place all the time because you have to keep telling the same story over and over again. Fight the Vulture, fight Green Goblin, whatever. I want to tell stories about using my drawing ability to draw comics to do stuff that was like happening to me and people I knew and people I admired. And to me, this is like a superhero comic book about a hero right here. Mr. Santana, he's a real hero. You know, he's a real person, actually endured things that no fictional character could even imagine. So this is what it led to. You know, I consider this right now the highlight of my career. I've done several books because I actually know the person I work with. I know what his history is, and I was able to, in some way, realize, I mean, in a very tiny way, something that happened to him, and people can share it, like y'all couldn't read it, and say, oh, I know a little bit now about Ray Santana. That's me doing my story.
All right, so around the same time this happened, another incident occurred. So Mr. Santana, you briefly mentioned the 1984 shooting of Eleanor Bumpers, who was a disabled Black woman who was shot by police in your memoir. How does her story tie in with yours and the mindset during that time?
For me, because I might have been about 9, 10 years old at the time, and I remember we lived in the Bronx at the time in Cedric houses. And I remember looking out the window and I see the candlelight visuals, and I'm asking my mom, you know, what happened, and she's explaining, because she knew Eleanor Bumpers. Everybody, back then, those communities were very tight-knit. So if me and you hung out as kids, our parents knew each other. And so for me, it becomes an introduction for me. I mean, it's a memory that I share with my mom, right? But then it also becomes an introduction to injustice. Right? What happened to this woman? Like, there were several visuals outside, candlelight visuals after she passed away. And so learning it, you know, at first I was just naive. You know, somebody just explained what happened. You know, that she was an elderly woman and she got shot by the police because they thought that she was too aggressive, right? And so I'm a kid, so it goes over my head. But years later, you know, when I look back at my own instance, then I start to make the connection. You know, and for me, it kind of goes into a spiritual sense, right? Where it's like sometimes you get built up for situations even though you don't know or you don't understand, but it becomes part of my foundation later on. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I can imagine writing about Miss Bumpers was brutal and challenging. Yes. But while writing your memoir, which part of your story was the most challenging to write?
For me, it's like it's a build up, right? Because you start, you know, and it goes for me, moving back to Harlem, because I was born in Harlem originally, moved to the Bronx, and then I came back. And so it starts off, you know, just family, right? The base, the foundation. And the toughest part is when you get into the interrogation piece, right? Because that stuff never goes anywhere. It's like it just happened to me yesterday. And so I constantly relive it. But the reason why we continuously keep telling it is because somebody needs to hear it. Yeah.
So, Mr. Brown, the artwork matches the gritty side of New York City and looks as if it's a mix of watercolor and other media. What tools did you use to convey Mr. Santana's story? Yeah,
I used everything with the kitchen sink drawing this thing. A lot of it I just drew it in pencil, and then I would add the colors later, like in Photoshop or something, or whatever it felt. You know, the biggest thing that was important to me about the way the book looks, in terms of the art, was that it's like 3 different sections of Raymond's life. His first section is his bright optimism about coming to Harlem and the beauty of it, like the first image we see here when, you know, he's seeing you know, we used to say the tight clothes and all that, you know, and checking it all out and say, oh, dang, it's like, look what they're doing, man. And the music, you know, digging the music and everything. Hip hop was, this is around the birth of hip hop. So, you know, a lot of, and so, but then when we get into the Central Park, I don't know if we have any images from it, but the Central Park parts like that, then I started making the colors darker and more serious. And so we're really now in this place. And I have to say, personally, drawing it wasn't about the technical side of drawing it, but the technical side of my emotional ability to get through that part, just like you said, that it was, you can never forget it. Yeah. It was the toughest part for me to get through. As a matter of fact, we were kind of chatting right before we got on stage, and I was saying to him that the movie, I couldn't even watch it because I kept crying, seeing these young men suffering, but I had to draw it, and it took me months to draw it. So, you know, I changed the tone of the whole thing.
So for both of you, as we look at this wonderful panel, this is an extremely powerful story with equally powerful art. What do you want our teens in our audience and those watching to take from this project?
I know for me, it's about the visual. The words are impactful, but it's a visual. We want you to see it. Back in 1990, when we was on trial, and even during the beginning of the case, they would take our videotapes and they would post them on TV, right? And people get to see that visual. And then when they pulled it and they stopped doing it, then they went to art. The sketch artists in the courtroom would draw us. And later on, they even said that they drew us with dark colors, or they drew us with faces looking sunk in, because they wanted us to look subhuman. They didn't want, when people looked at us, they wanted people to look at us as animals. And for me, it's an impact there, right? It's an impact.
Yeah, I you know, one of the things I know that Ray was an artist, and at first I was kind of put off because I said, well, let me see some of Ray's art, because I want to see what he was doing. My boy, I want to see what he was drawing, and they wouldn't give me any. And I said, I don't know who was telling me I couldn't look at his art. So I said, well, so I drew the whole book, imagining if Ray could draw his own book, this is what it would look like. So that's what this is. It's not even, if you were to look at some of my other books, it's not the same style. I actually did a certain style just for this book, because I was imagining if Ray was able to draw his whole book and had all the, you know, whatever, it's a situation of advantages, maybe it would look kind of like this. So I was almost looking through, you know, like you were a viewmaster. Look in the back of your head, and through your eyes, man, you know.
Yeah. So now we're going to go to more of the art portion, because Mr. Santana, you mentioned fashion and art as your salvation from the harsh reality you were in. So what drew you to fashion, which led to you creating your line, Park Madison NYC?
For me, because throughout the years, I was frustrated with art. I kept, you know, I didn't have the drive. And so it was me just trying to figure it out. How do I overcome this me being stumped? And I looked at a T-shirt, right? And I said, wait a minute, a T-shirt is a canvas. We can put words on it, we could put images, we could put feelings. You could just put a sign, and if it touches somebody, then it makes sense. And that's what made me go in that direction. You know, it was me understanding what happened to me as a kid, and then how do I use that voice? And if you didn't want to speak, then the T-shirt spoke for me. So that's what led me to go into Park Madison NYC.
So definitely check out the website. It's awesome. So, and also, are you still in touch with the rest of the Exonerated Five, and are you working on any projects together?
I know somebody asked me that earlier, one of the students. Yeah, we know we have our own chat. You know, we argue like brothers over sports. Yeah, and for us, I didn't know Antron, I didn't know Yusuf, I didn't know Kevin, I didn't know Corey, right? You know, some of them lived at the Schaumburg. Antron lived around the corner on 111th Street. I was from the east side of Harlem, so I'm originally from 119th Street in Lexington. So I didn't know them. I just happened to be in the same vicinity because we was going over to the Schaumburg because, you know, some girls over there that I liked, so I wanted to go over there and hang out, right? You know, and so that's what led me over there to the Schaumburg. And for the Schaumburg boys, Central Park was their backyard, so they used to always hang out in the entrance. And so that's how I got up to meet them. But we formed this brotherhood, which later on, when you get to the doc and when you get to when they see us, we understood that we had a platform and we had a voice. So no, those are my brothers. We talk on the phone all the time. Yusuf now is currently councilman in Harlem in the 9th District. So we run around together a lot. You see us a lot together all the time. But those are my brothers at the end of the day. I'm stuck with them.
Okay, so actually, how many aspiring artists do we have in the audience? Oh, we got a couple. Nice. Okay, so Mr. Brown,
Call me Keith.
Keith, okay. I was waiting.
Mr. Brown was my father.
Okay. So, for our teens in the audience and those watching on the live stream, and for those who want to explore a career in art, what advice would you give them to help them to take that first step?
I think simply put is that, actually I'm gonna just go off of something Ray just said, you just gotta be committed. For me, it wasn't even a commitment, it was a must. I didn't know how to do anything else, so I figured I was gonna, I don't know, end up working. I just knew that that was the one thing that I felt I could do and it brought me pleasure, and I figured there's some way in this world that I could do my art and make a living from doing it. That would be a dream come true. So in a lot of ways, I'm living a dream come true. It's wanting to do it and sticking with it. I teach, and everybody's in the class at the art school I teach it. You know, I assume that they're there because they love it and they want to do it and they will always do it. If you're not there to do that, then you should pick something else, because it's the only way to be proficient enough at it and happy enough with what you're doing to stick with it your whole life. And I've been sticking with it for a long time.
Actually, I will ask a question for you as well. Any advice for our future artist?
100%. I mean, just stick with it. If it's a passion of yours, you bring it to the table, you develop it. I started drawing stick figures. I used to literally sit at the table, and it started with playing with G.I. Joes, with the little green army men. I mean, this is before your time. So it started that way, and then it went to, reading comic books, and then it actually went to drawing them. And I started with figures, and that just became a passion of mine. So much that even though I stumbled throughout the years, we figured it out. so it still put me on the right path, and we're here today. So at the end of the day, it just starts with you, like Keith said, having a passion for it and wanting to do it.
One of my favorite parts of the book for me to draw was the parts showing you drawing. I love the idea of you sitting, like, working on it.
Yeah. And to this day, I mean, I still keep sketch pads in my house. I still keep markers. I keep pens, because sometimes it'll come to me. Ideas will come, and I'll sit there and I'll sketch them out. And it doesn't have to look perfect. It doesn't have to look like a masterpiece. As long as you understand what it is that you're doing, it's yours, right? And that was the thing too, right? Because people will look at your art sometimes and they'll critique it. Oh, what is that you're drawing? It looks crazy, right? But when you turn it into something, then it's not. So it is about just sticking with it.
Do it for yourself.
Do it for yourself.
Yeah, I'll say as a former art student, I totally get that. So, any aspiring writers in our audience? None? Oh, I see a couple. Don't be shy, because honestly, everybody has a story to tell.
That's right.
So everybody has a story to tell.
That's right.
So, what advice would you give our young people today about telling their story and sharing their experiences?
For me, it leads right to the last question. It's about your passion. It's your story. It's your vision, right? My lawyer told me, he said, nobody can tell your story better than you. And that's the truth. And for the movement, because the investment that we put into you is for you to develop your talent. So whatever that is, whatever your art is, whether it's writing, singing, drawing, there's somebody who painted a mirror that said Black Lives Matter, and we had that all across the country. So it just starts with your idea, and just bringing it to the forefront and just making it a reality.
And Keith?
Yeah, I mean, Ray said it better than I can. You know, ditto.
And also, for those, any activists? Activists in the audience?
No, we should have some activists in y'all.
Yeah, we should.
Y'all go to school in East Harlem, right? Y'all in East Harlem, so y'all see the conditions in your neighborhood all the time, right? We ask young guys like yourself to write about those experiences, right? That's how you put your talent on what you see, your creativity.
Exactly. Well, that pretty much was my last.
And activism comes in a lot of different forms too. You know, when we say activism, that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, what people were doing last week. You know, the No Kings. That could mean writing something and posting it. It could mean putting yourself out there, maybe trying to get people to vote for a certain person that you think is doing the right thing for the community. It could be all different levels. That's right. You know, for me, you know, doing books like this, that's my form. You know, because I devote myself to a certain kind of stories that to me empower young folks like yourself. If I was doing, like, I don't know, like you know, kids books, you know, or books for young people, a lot of times it could be all different kinds. It could be anime. It could be you know, books like, you know, I like to poop, whatever, you know. And I don't want to do those books, because to me, if I'm going to spend all this time and all this hard work to do something, I might as well make it mean something to somebody somewhere. So that's my form of activism. So I do think that what you think might not be activism, just wearing a T-shirt could be activism, you know. So think about it like that. Start small. Maybe you're going to want to build it up.
That's true. And also, that book does exist, just like you know. So, actually, I hope you have your questions ready, because it's time for our Q&A. So, how we're going to do this, so if you have your questions ready, raise your hand, and I'll call on you. You have to speak into the microphone. Don't yell it, because we've got to make sure everyone on the live stream hears you, okay? So, thank you. I'll let you know where I got them. So, actually, we have someone right here in the audience. Right here.
Well, I was wondering if you had any resentment towards each other in the beginning because you testified against each other, and if there was any, like, hard feelings because of that.
That's a good question.
That's a good question. In the beginning, I believe, so what happened, when you see When They See Us, is a point where they put us in the bullpen, and at that point is when we all kind of realized that we've been had by the good cop, bad cop, and by the tactics that detectives use on us. And so at that moment, it wasn't no resentment, because I couldn't be mad at Kevin because he went through the same thing I did, right? And I didn't even know him. And in no actuality, we thought as 14 and 15-year-old kids, we thought that the district attorney's office would come back later on and say that we lied. That's what we was waiting on. We really thought, because the pressure was so great, that we all lied. So we all knew that we told the story. We just thought they was gonna come back and really challenge us on it, and they never came back. So yeah, there wasn't no resentment. We understood what happened to us. Thank you for your question.
So, we got one minute. Oh, any more questions? Oh, there we go. Oh, keep your hands up if you have a question, okay? All right.
Were you depressed in jail?
Excuse me?
Were you depressed in jail?
Yeah, of course. Because here it is that I had to grow up in the system. So at that time, I spent from 14 to 21 in prison. So those were a lot of days where I was depressed. And that's why the art suffers. Because for me, the art was also an escape, right? When I'm drawing those stick figures, or I'm drawing the Marvel characters, that was me being placed there, right? I felt like trying to be like a superhero. And so in prison, when I'm trying to find the art, that's me trying to escape. So yeah, there's definitely times where I go through depression and stuff like that.
All right. All right. You've been holding your hand up for a while.
During your time in jail, did anything bad happen to you?
Well, you know, you get it. I had fights, stuff like that. But I think that for me there was a blessing there because a lot of the other guys was able to get bailed out. I didn't get bailed out, right? So I wound up spending 17 months in Spofford Juvenile Center, and throughout that time I met so many people that years later that kind of became my network, right? So I didn't have a lot of problems in prison, but it's prison. It happens. You know, I did get fights and stuff like that. Yeah.
All right. So anyone on? Oh, we got some questions right over here. Don't worry, we'll get to you guys. We're gonna get to everybody. We got plenty of time.
Do you still talk to the other people?
Excuse me?
No. What was your question again?
I was gonna ask if you guys like still hang out, all of you guys together.
Oh, if you and the rest.
Yeah, we talk. We got our own chat. We talk all the time on the phone.
All right. All right. We got someone over.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions.
All right. Yeah.
Do you ever?
It's okay.
It happens.
Do you regret being in the park that day?
You know,
Oh, listen, bro.
that's a real question. I get that question a lot. Do you regret being in the park? Also, if you can go back, would you change things? Right? And so typically the answer should be yes, right? But I look at who I am now. I have a daughter. My daughter is 21, and that's the blessing. And I feel like if this didn't happen, then that wouldn't be there. So for me, I can't turn back the hands of time. I wouldn't.
Okay. And then
What was the first thing you did when you got out of jail?
The first thing I did was when I was released, my dad brought me some Chinese food. And it's still my dish to this day, chicken wings and shrimp fried rice. Yeah.
What was your thought process of thinking your only option was to sell drugs after you got out of prison for a while?
Hey.
Ooh.
They researched.
Someone did research.
That's a good question. You know, I came home. When I came home, you know, I had a GED. I had an associate's degree. So I'm thinking I got some smarts, right? I'm thinking I can maneuver. And when I came home, I was hit with a 7 o'clock curfew, right? I had to register as a sex offender, which means that I had to attend sex offender classes. And then there was this scrutiny about me that everybody was watching what I was doing. So for me, thinking that I had some smarts and then now I got hit with all these new obstacles, I didn't know how to function. I really didn't. And that's the reason why I go back to prison, because I filled out numerous job applications, nobody would hire me, right? And then if somebody said, well, you know what, let me take a chance because he looks like a strong young boy, maybe we could, you could lift some boxes or something, and they would say, well, what's your case? And then if I said the Central Park jogger case, then there was no job. So for me, that gave me a whole new pressure that I didn't understand, that I didn't even know exist, right? And when I started looking at the boys on the corner, you don't have to fill out an application for that, right? You don't have to interview for that. That's street, and I just came home from prison, so I knew a lot about street, and so that led me to getting back into that, and then letting back me going to prison.
Well, anyone? All right, let's see. We have a gentleman right over here, and I just gotta say, God bless you for going through for a crime you didn't commit. That's insane.
Stop.
What's your question?
My question is, what are some coping mechanisms that you did when you were in jail? Why do I sound like
Just go ahead.
For me, the biggest one was education, right? I get there, my reading is okay, but I understood that I didn't fully understood what happened to me. And so it took me through getting my education, through reading several books, different books. I get to a college program, and they give us a syllabus, and the syllabus, it has 5 books on it, but we only use 1. And I was a smart mouth a little bit in class, so I remember asking the professor, why you give us all these books if we only using 1? And he said, you don't understand it now, but one day you will. And as I got a little bit older, I started to read more. And when I started to read, you know, one of the first books I read was the autobiography of Malcolm X, right? People's History by Howard Zinn. So it was these books that I read, and that was the coping mechanism. Me understanding, you know, what slavery was. Me understanding what our people have been going through for years before even I come into existence, right? And it gave me an understanding of what direction I needed to go in. But, you know, the coping mechanism, that for me was reading. It was reading.
What was the process of going to the police station?
Of going through the what?
Going to the
Process of
police
going to
station.
the police station.
Oh, so for us, you know, I get arrested that night. They take me down to the Central Park precinct. Kevin Richardson gets arrested that night, but I don't know him. And so, you know, they take us into the juvenile room in Central Park, and they process us. And so after they process us, we got to call our parents, because originally we were given misdemeanors. So we was given trespassing, menacing, rioting in Central Park. And so we were sitting there waiting for our parents to come in. And so, you know, it took our parents a long time. My dad didn't even know where the Central Park precinct was. So they had to send a car to go get him and bring him to the precinct, so that took a lot of time. And they found the jogger like in the wee hours of the morning, and they found her in this ravine, and she had lost all this blood that they thought she was gonna die. And so that's how they started to ask about us. And when they found out that we was in the precinct, the detectives said, hold us, because they wanted to talk to us. So it's estimated that we are in the interrogation rooms for 15 to 30 hours. No water, no sleep, no food. And so that's the process. The process is to wear you down to a state of helplessness where you feel like nobody can help you but the police. It's the stuff that you see on Law and Order and CSI. Good cop, bad cop, that type of stuff. It works.
All right, so that was great. So we're gonna go to the next question, but if you have any art questions, keep those hands up, okay? All right.
I just wanted to say something. I really don't have a question. So you guys only get 18 years to be a child, right? So enjoy those 18 years of being a child. This is important because I want you to close your eyes and I want you to think. Not being able to go to prom, not being able to go to the store, McDonald's, a party, a dance. Think about not being able to do that between the ages of 14 years all the way up until 26 years old. From 14 years old to 26 years old. You can't have the food you want to eat. You can't play with the friends you want to play with. You can't go in and out the door as you please. So that time frame was taken away from these 5 men. So cherish the years that you have and make sure you be mindful when you go in and out of your homes. Make sure you know your rights because it's important. Because you could put yourself in a situation that you don't even know when the next time you're going to see outside.
Okay, why don't we go around here? Any art questions? Oh, we got one right here. Hey, don't worry, we'll get to you. I got you.
What was it like going into fashion?
What was it like?
Going into fashion.
Going to fashion.
Going into fashion. You know, I didn't have a clue. That's why I started with the T-shirts, because the T-shirts for me was like a smooth, an easy transition. And I remember I was sitting there talking with Rashid, right, who's my partner on Park in Madison, and he was like, "You want to do a T-shirt line?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "For what? You could do all these other things. Why do that?" And I said, "Because my art has been suppressed." And so for me, it was to go in basic. I'm not going and saying that I'm this big art design, you know, this big fashion designer. You know, I designed 100 pieces. But for me, it started with just a T-shirt. It started with just a T-shirt, and then what was the message that I was gonna put on a T-shirt? Mm-hmm. And so we built Park in Madison, NYC, to be like a fashion brand. But what happened was that as we kept developing it, the message was being put in. And there was no way around it because the Central Park case was just too big. So at the end of the day, I had to incorporate the fashion into my message. Yeah.
We're gonna go here, then we'll go back up. And also, I want to give a shout out to Whitney, who's been running back and forth with the microphone with the questions. Thank you so much, Whitney. You're amazing. So give her a round. Give her a round of applause.
My question is, what advice do you have for our minority boys and girls as to how to conduct themselves in our environment as we have it today with the unfair judicial system, the lopsided penal system, and all the obstacles that they'll face going forward?
Hi, hello, I'm an educator too. My question also was like for parents also, or what advice would you give them if their children were in that situation?
Yeah. I know for the parents, like when we first did the doc, when we did the Ken Burns doc, you know, we found out that we had a voice. And so the voice was to talk to our younger people. But also the message was for parents also, because parents are that last line of defense, right? And so it's about, you know, parents come home, they're gonna come to you and say, "Hey, you ever heard of this case?" And you look at your parents like they not hip. You don't know what they're talking about. You not street, you old school, right? But there's some wisdom there and there's some knowledge there. And so for us, it was about getting the parents involved. You don't gotta be a lawyer. You ain't gotta be, you know, you don't have to be this profession, but just know the basics. If my dad would have known, if he would have just came in and said, "Nah, my son not talking no more," and just took a stand, that would have been the end of it. But my dad had a 10th grade education. He never finished high school. So he worked all his life. He never had no dealings with the law. So he didn't even understand. We were both in there, two blind people just trying to figure it out. You know, and so for us, and then when it comes to younger people, it's about the awareness. The reason why we push on the story so much is because we need you to know that the story exists. When we first started doing the doc with Ken Burns, people would say, that story's fiction. They didn't believe it. They didn't believe about the twists and turns in our story. They thought, even to this day, people will still ask, "Yo, is when they see us 100% yard," because they think that it's some fabrication in there. And so for us, it starts with letting the young people know that first, it's a real problem and it does exist. And then the second issue is that you are the precious commodity that it needs to exist. In order for the system to operate, it needs to hold on. It needs to latch on to somebody and not let them go. And you become the commodity because you are young. To house an inmate in New York State prison back then cost about $40,000 a year, right? Now watch me. Now to house a juvenile back then in juvenile facilities was up to $200,000 a year. So the investment wasn't on the old, the investment was on the young. Why? Because you get to hold on to them for a long time. If you go through a juvenile facility and you come home, then you have probation, you have parole, other obstacles that lead you back. Then recidivism rate, which means that you're gonna go back to prison within 6 months to a year. This is all calculated. They already done did the math on us. They already know where we're going and they're gonna push us in that direction. So it's up to me to come on my platform and use the mediums that I have to spread the message. And that's why I did docs. we did movies, we do books, we do clothing. Because at the end of the day, anything that can reach you, I'm supposed to utilize it. Yeah.
And I just want to piggyback on that too. While you were being interrogated, some of your parents were not with you, right?
That's 100% correct. Yeah. So what they would do is, like in my situation, because I had my grandmother there, right? So my grandmother, she couldn't carry she spoke predominantly Spanish, right? She know English curse words, that's it, right? So she couldn't carry a conversation in English, so the detective would question me, and then he had to translate to her. That process took too long. So what they did was, there would be a knock at the door, a detective would come in, and he talked to my grandmother, and he'd tell her in Spanish, Miss Colon, can you step out in the hallway so I can talk to you? And because she didn't see nothing going on, she thought it was cool. So when he takes her out in the hallway and he's talking to her, his line is, Raymond's not telling us everything, we think he's holding stuff back. But in the room, the detectives are already starting to threaten me. They're already starting to apply the pressure. That's how it starts. Yeah.
Hey Ray, I got a question for you.
Yeah. Oh.
Do you have a bad feeling like about police right now? And generally speaking, do you feel distrustful of the police as a general way, or do you feel like they're good cops and bad cops? You just got into a batch of bad cops.
I believe back then I thought that they were mostly all bad, right? Because that was my only experience. And then it wasn't until I got older, right? I come across several officers who have expressed gratitude towards us, who support the exonerated 5. So it had to change my outlook on them a little bit, to the point like now, I got stopped by police in Georgia before, and because I was speeding, right? I was speeding, and when he came to the car, I already had my license out the window. And he said, you already given it to me, I ain't even asked it. I said, well, you ain't gotta ask. I know what I was doing. Here's my license. And then he started laughing. And then he said, well, why was you speeding? And I said, this is a brand new car. I had to try it out, right? And he laughed. And he said, you know what? Since you were so honest, I'm not even gonna give you a ticket. And that became my key. Mm-hmm. Every time I interact with the police, to diffuse whatever anger's in the air. Right? We don't have to be combative to the police. At the end of the day, if he stop you, yes, officer, what do you need? What do you want? And I'm not saying that you got to kiss up to him either, but it's just kiss up to the police, right? I'm not saying that you have to either. Like, it's just a line of respect that shouldn't be crossed. And if it's crossed against you, then you're supposed to take the appropriate actions. But the outlook has been totally different. And even on the campaign run, because I ran for city councilman for the 8th district, and even then, police treated me with the utmost respect. And so I said, all right, it's how I carry myself, it's how I speak, it's how I react, right? That's what they look at. And then you also have to remember that these are people that if they feel that their lives are in danger, they can kill somebody. They have the right to. We don't, they do. And so that's how we have to operate in that space of diffusing the negative energy.
What caused the change from you wanting to illustrate fictional stories to real life stories?
That's for you.
I just think that I felt stifled, that especially with Marvel Comics, it just kept being the same story. Like Spidey fights, Green Goblin, he wins, he goes back to what he's doing, and then he fights another guy and then wins, and people's stories are much more interesting than that. Your story is more interesting than that. My story is more interesting, and I just wanted to get away from. Also, the whole, corporate part of it. I don't own any of these characters. They're so, when you have real people, and then you find out, the human beings, the stories are endless. I think real people are way more interesting than fictional people. You know, so I think that's what really ended up. Thank you for asking.
So, how do you feel about Mateus Reyes today?
Where you guys getting these questions from?
Someone did
One
some
of them teachers are
research.
giving y'all- Good question. For me, I don't. My thing is, I don't. Mateus Reyes, he was known as the East Side rapist, the East Side slasher, right? Yes, and so. With me, I'm just grateful that he stepped forward when he saw Corey walking in the yard, right? That, it was 13 years later, he saw Corey walking in the yard, and he seen how bad Corey's feet was, and he stopped them, and they had a conversation, and he talked to Corey about accepting Jesus and going to church, right? And then from there, he decided to tell a story. Right, and as he continued to tell the story, the system didn't believe him. So he kind of had to make them believe him, right? And how he did that was he told them about 4 unsolved cases that they went back and reinvestigate and found out that it was him, right? And then he moved by himself. So all his crimes he committed alone. And then he went and he gave them specific details of the jogger case that they didn't know, that nobody else knew but the person who actually did it. And so for me, I'm grateful that he did come forward, because even the system gave him a hard time to tell his story. He did a deposition, and he was on the stand doing his deposition for 3 days, right? Because they kept trying to make him the 6th man, And so again, this was a system that was failing. They didn't want him to be the only culprit, right? And to this day, those prosecutors and no police still say we guilty. They still say that we guilty of something, period. But Mateus Reyes didn't have to come forward. Mateus Reyes tells you in his statement, in his story, that upon leaving the scene of the crime, he stopped by the police because he worked at a bodega on 102nd Street and around the corner from the precinct. And when they stopped him, they asked him, hey, did you see some young kids in the park? And he said no. But even he says it. If they would have looked down at the jeans, my jeans, they would have saw the blood on my pants. And he walked away. So I mean, for him to be who he is, and even he's trying to do something right, says a lot about this system.
So we have time for one more question. All right. Oh. All right, over. Everyone's pointing to you, so, all right. All right, don't worry.
What is so funny?
It's okay.
If you could go back in time and do something different, what would you do?
If you can go back in time.
I mean, for me, like I stated earlier, because of who I am now and because of my daughter, I wouldn't go back in time. I mean, if I did, it would probably be something like don't get married or something like that. But for me, I mean, this was something that we have done too much going forward. To go back and reverse it, it means that a lot of people are robbed of possibilities. So that's why I wouldn't change the story. I mean, it gave me a platform. It gave me a voice. It let me talk to you, right? It let me give you the messages. And if you go on tomorrow and you become a lawyer, you become the president, I'm cool with that.
All right. Hi, everyone. Hi again. We hope you enjoyed this TeenLIVE event. Thank you so much to our guests today, Raymond Santana and Keith Henry Brown, for this great conversation. And thank you so much to Renee Scott, our moderator. For those joining us online, you can pick up a copy of today's book, Pushing Hope, at your local library.